So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, guys, based on the time zones you all are coming from. So guys, before we start with the session, can you all please give me a quick confirmation if you all can see my screen and hear me loud and clear as well? You can all use the questions tab to give me a quick confirmation, guys, if you all can see my screen and hear me loud and clear as well. Perfect. Thank you so much for the confirmation, everyone. So my name is Neeraj Khedia, and I've been working in this IT industry for more than 13 years now. So here we have gathered to discuss on what exactly Lambda is and how we can get started on using it. So first of all, we are going to discuss on the concepts for AWS, what exactly AWS is, how it is structured in terms of different services. Then we are going to discuss on what exactly AWS Lambda is, how it works, how the pricing in AWS Lambda works, and then we are going to see a hands-on by logging into our AWS console and then using Lambda as a simple for solving a simple problem statement for getting the for processing the notification when any event is going to be triggered on the S3 service. That exactly is what we are going to discuss as a part of our discussion in today's session. So AWS, as we know, is one of the global leaders, not one of the, it is the global leader in cloud computing. So if we talk about cloud computing, then it simply allows us to use the infrastructure that has been set up by multiple other vendors so that we don't have any requirement of do any kind of infrastructure setup at our own end, and then we can deploy the services anyhow and again in whatever configuration, and that too in whatever region we want. That exactly AWS is all about. AWS is all about. That exactly is what cloud computing is all about. And AWS has been the global leader in terms of cloud computing. So it was started back in 2006. So it was first of all conceptualized back in 2003, and it was released as a beta version on 2004 in 2004, and then for 2 years it was thoroughly tested, and then in 2006 it was released officially for the public with two core services, that is EC2 and the S3 service. And since then, it has been continuously adding and removing multiple services among different categories. Let's say we have more than 175 services in different categories, including blockchain, IoT, computation, storage, networking, databases, AI, ML. We have multiple categories of services in which AWS offers multiple services to work with so that we don't have to do any kind of infrastructure setup at our own end. We can use these services to get started right away. That exactly is what AWS is all about. So AWS is the leading cloud computing platform. And basically, in terms of cloud computing, we have three main service models, right? We have infrastructure as a service, we have platform as a service, and then we have software as a service. So in infrastructure as a service, we get the access to the entire infrastructure. So we can choose what kind of configuration we want, how exactly we want it, and then we can deploy these services, and then we can have the access to the platform as service where the entire operating system and every other component, they are going to be structured automatically. And then we can choose a platform in which we want to deploy the applications, and then we can deploy it right away as a part of platform as a service. Whereas in software as a service, we don't have to do anything. The entire software, along with the entire platform and infrastructure, they already are configured. And then being a user, we can subscribe to these services to get started. Now, to see the list of all the AWS services that AWS has to offer, we can refer to a link called aws.amazon.com. So in that link, we will be able to see the list of all the services offered by AWS. Like we have for computation, storage and content delivery, database, networking, management tools, security, applications. So let me just do one thing. So here we can refer to the link here called as aws.amazon.com. So here we'll be able to see the list of all the services listed under analytics, application integration, AR/VR, cost management for the containers, end user computation. Then we have a front end and Again, we have the game tag, we have Internet of Things. So we have multiple services in total, like we have, and in total we have more than 175 services offered under the entire category. AWS has multiple services. So for example, in the computation, we have services like we have EC2, we have the entire Lambda service. So basically, if we talk about the EC2 components here, then here we can talk about the EC2 is basically like a virtual machine where we can deploy the virtual servers in case of instead of deploying a physical server with AWS, and then we can deploy the applications on top of it at any time we want. Then we have storage and content delivery. So under storage and content delivery, we have services like we have S3, we have the ABS volume that we use along with the instances. We have the storage gateway, we have the Glacier service, we have CloudFront service that we are going to discuss. Basically, these are the main services offered under storage and content delivery. Then under database, we have services like we have RDS being the relational database service. Then for NoSQL database service, we are going to discuss on DynamoDB. And then for the data warehousing service, we have Redshift. For performing the jobs on data warehouse, we have AWS Glue. So these all are services that we are going to discuss under database service module. Then we have networking. So under networking, we can create our own isolated network by using a service called as VPC. So here we have services like we have VPC that we are going to discuss as a part of our discussion. So here we have service like we have VPC, where we can create our own customized network on a database we have discussed. We are going to discuss thoroughly on RDS, on DynamoDB, on the Redshift architecture as well, on Redshift. Whereas if we talk about the storage and content delivery, here we are going to discuss in detail about the S3 service, about the storage gateway, about the Glacier service, and the EBS volume EBS. Then we are going to discuss on the EBS, on EFS, and that too on the entire CloudFront distribution as well. Whereas in storage, we mostly focus on the EC2 and on the Lambda service. EC2, and then we focus on the Lambda service. Whereas under management tools, whereas if we talk about the management tools, and under management and monitoring, we use tools like we have CloudWatch, we have CloudTrail, we have Trusted Advisor, and then for the automation part again, we have multiple other services. Then under security, we have multiple services available that we are going to discuss on the KMS, which is basically used as a key management service through which we can create our own customized keys. Then we have services like we have WAF, we have the entire security shield that we can create. We have the entire IAM service for the identity and access management. Along with we have the Cognito as well for the single sign-on service. And then for deployment of applications, we have services like we have Beanstalk for the entire template formation. We have service like we have CloudFormation. For configuration management of servers, we have services like we have OpsWork as a part of automatic deployment of these services here. So basically, if we talk about the entire service models, and we have three main service models in which these all services are structured. So if we talk about the service models available in cloud, so let's understand that by a simple layman example. So for understanding this, we can use Notepad to have a quick understanding. So let's move to our annotation mode. So if we talk about the service models, if we talk about the cloud computing service models, cloud computing service models. Now, in terms of service models available in the cloud computing, there are mainly three service models available. First of all, we have infrastructure as a service that we commonly call as IS. So you have infrastructure as a service that we commonly abbreviate as IS. Then we have platform as a service that we call as PaaS platform. Here we have platform as a service. And then we have SaaS, we have this SaaS platform. So basically SaaS means software as a service. Very simply means software as a service. So basically, now to understand these in simple layman terms, we can go back to almost, let's say, 15 years back. At that point of time, suppose we had a requirement of purchasing a PC for us, then there were multiple vendors available in the market, correct? If we had to purchase a PC, there were multiple vendors available in the market. So we went to the first vendor, and the first vendor gave us the entire infrastructure only. For example, the first vendor gave us the entire infrastructure, as in the first vendor gave us the monitor, keyboard, the entire motherboard, hard disk, RAM, storage devices, the networking card, the graphical card already added. Here we have infrastructure as service. So when we get the entire infrastructure, but we don't get any kind of operating system, we don't get any kind of networking component already defined, then that is referred as infrastructure as a service. When we are getting only the infrastructure and then everything else had to be configured at our own end, then that is referred as infrastructure as a service. This is what infrastructure as a service. Now, suppose there was another vendor in the market for buying the PC. Now, that vendor not only gave us the entire infrastructure, but that vendor also gave us the entire operating system, bundle all the drivers and networking also installed on this hardware. That means we don't have to, for example, we want Mac OS, we want the Windows platform, we want the Linux platform, then these OS were already installed and configured on this hardware. So here we are getting the entire infrastructure. Plus, the entire platform is also available to us so that we can get started on using this system right away. And then we can install further applications, we can upload our own data set, we can configure it as per the requirement. So this is referred to as platform as a service. And then in the same market, there was another vendor in the market. Now that vendor not only gave us the entire infrastructure, that vendor not only gave us the entire platform as an operating system installed, but that vendor also gave us multiple software bundles also configured. For example, here we got the entire MS Office suite. Here we got the entire multiple streaming applications already configured here. Here we got the entire meeting services already configured. So instead of getting just the infrastructure, or just the platform, here we are getting the entire bundle, as in the complete infrastructure, the complete OS platform configured. Along with that, we have multiple applications also pre-installed here so that we can start using it right away. And that's why this is referred as infrastructure, or we can say software as a service. So let's say there's a guy and this guy wants to work on spreadsheets. So this guy can go to infrastructure as a service. So this guy can get the access to the entire hardware. But again, this guy has to work on installation of the operating system, configuring its files here, the entire setup, and then working on deployment of the application. Then this guy has to work on getting the license for MS Office suite, install it, and then only this guy can start working on the spreadsheets, right? This guy can also go for platform as service, where this guy doesn't have to worry about setting up the operating system and getting the infrastructure, because here both things are already available. But this guy has to worry about getting the license, installing the software, and then only it can start using it. And then we have third vendor. So this guy can go for this one as well, as in software as a service. So here this guy doesn't have to do anything. Here the entire infrastructure, the entire OS and all the applications, they already are pre-configured so that we can deploy the application code and then we can get started on it directly. That exactly is what we refer as software as a service. Now, the complete AWS platform, all the cloud computing platforms that we have, AWS, Azure, GCP, so they allow us to choose the infrastructure. For example, we want to deploy the application on, suppose, an instance having 1 core of CPU or 1 GB of RAM, or we want it to be deployed on 10 cores of CPU and 40 GB of RAM. And that too of what kind of processor, what kind of storage, how much of storage. So we can choose every parameter. So there we are getting the entire liberty of choosing the infrastructure that we need. And then we have platform as service. So here we can get the access to, here we have services like we have Beanstalk. So Beanstalk is basically like a automatic deployment service given to us by AWS, through which we can deploy the application without configuring the environment first, mostly preferred by developers all around the globe. And then under software service, all the applications that we have, Netflix, we have YouTube, we have Prime, we have all the Gmails, all the Google services. Like we have Gmail, we have Android, we have YouTube, we have Google Maps. So again, all of these services, we don't have, being an end user, we don't have to do anything. We can have the applications deployed and start using it right away. And that's why they are referred as software as a service. And Lambda is basically a part of software service that we are going to discuss, because using Lambda, we don't have to worry about setting up any kind of server, and we have to pay only for the duration of time for which we have used the computation power. All right, so now let's start our discussion on AWS Lambda. What exactly AWS Lambda is? So AWS Lambda is basically a serverless computing platform given to us by AWS, where when we are working as developers, we don't have to worry about setting up the services, setting up the EC2 instances at our own end. And we don't have to keep any server idle as a part of our deployment. Now, to understand this in simple layman terms, we can take the help of a small example. So we can come back to our annotation mode to see a small hands-on example. Let's say we come back. All right, so let's erase this up. Now we are going to talk about Lambda by using a small use case. Let's say if we talk about a simple static website. Now we have a static website. When we say static website, we mean a website built on simple HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We have simple HTML-based website, a simple static website. Website built on HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So when we have a static website, do we need an actual server, a full-time server for deploying it? We don't need it, right? Now here when we are deploying a simple static website, so again, these are not HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. They are simply executed the way they are in the directly in the browser. We don't need to have any kind of server for these different languages. Now, when we are deploying the application on the base of PHP, we have a PHP application, we have a Node.js application. That's where we do need to have these servers, the services up and running, correct? That's why we need a server for those kind of dynamic websites running on PHP or Node.js. But again, these are static pages, so we don't need to have a full-fledged EC2 instance for running and for allowing the users to open up these pages, correct? These are like files, and then we can deliver the files to anyone we want without using a full-fledged EC2 instance. So when we want to host a static website, we can make use of a service called as S3. S3 is basically a simple storage service given to us by AWS, where we can store any document we want, any object we want, and we can share it with anyone we want. One of the integral services offered by AWS. So let's say when we are deploying a static website, let's say here we had deployed a static website. Now suppose this website is built on a simple use case for solving the travel problem. So here we have a travel-based website, and now on this static website where it is being run on S3 service, so we may have a chatbot also well integrated into this entire system. We have a chatbot. Now, this chatbot is going to allow the users to enter their queries as a utterance, and then based on whatever query they have entered, whatever intent they have been, we want to process these queries and give an automated reply right away. For example, if the user types in, I would like to book a ticket. So now the chatbot can automatically ask, okay, show what date, and then the user can reply with the date. Show what city, the user can reply to with a city as well. Any flight preferences, they can reply with the flight preference as well. How many passengers, we can ask them, and again this is going to reply with the passengers number as well. So we can take the entire input from the users by using this chatbot, which is basically reducing the time required for solving the issues. So here we can define all the parameters, and we want that whenever these parameters are being recorded, we have to do something with it, correct? So either we can configure the application to get connected with suppose any particular database, or for example, we want that these details should be should be used for filtering out the flight options available for this particular individual users. So we can connect this to any of the flight, we can say flight-based system, and then based on the input entered by the user, we can return the input from as part of the response. We can do this. And here for now, here the entire dynamic processing is going to take place. Although the dynamic processing is not being applied on the entire website, but here dynamic processing is being taking place. So what we can do here, we can process now. Once we the user they have entered the information, we want to process it, correct? So for processing this information, we have two ways. Either we can use a full-fledged EC2 instance, or we can make use of a service by the name of Lambda. We can make use of full-fledged service called as EC2, or we can make it simply link it to a Lambda service. So now if we are going for EC2, then EC2, as we know, is a full-fledged virtual instance that we can deploy. That means here we can choose the AMI, the machine image that we want to use for deploying the servers. We can choose and we have to choose the entire instance type. That means what kind of instance type we want to deploy, because we have multiple configuration of servers giving different performance and suitable for different requirements. Then here we can also choose the entire security group. We had to define the entire EBS volume as well. We had to define the entire tenancy, the EBS volumes. We had to define the security group and all the other tags. And plus, EC2, as we know, mostly works on a per hour basis. It works on a per hour basis. Now we have observed that the average time required by this chatbot for one user, it is somewhere close to, let's say, 22 seconds in total, while they're trying to converse with the tool here. And we have estimated that, or we have from the past record, we have seen that we are receiving almost 100 times. We are receiving almost 100 times or 200 times in what we used to receive earlier. So let's say we are now here, let's say we are going to consume 22 seconds. Now, for completing the one task, it takes 22 seconds. So for completing 100 tasks, it is going to take how much? Again, we can define the parameter. So in total, we require almost 2200 seconds of processing. For example, suppose we know that on an average, suppose if this particular chatbot is being triggered by just 10 users on a hourly basis. That means in a given hour, it is being triggered by just 10 users. So that means in a given hour, entire processing is going to happen only for 220 seconds, correct? So 22 seconds for just one processing, and then for in total, we see almost 10 users triggering this chatbot. So we do need to process actually only for 220 seconds. That means, but here in EC2, we have to keep the server idle for the entire hour. That means just to process 220 seconds of the actual processing request, we have wasted money on keeping the server idle for complete 1 hour. For complete 1 hour. As you can see, the entire process hasn't been open for or even for more than 6 minutes, correct? That means running the processing only for 6 minutes, but we had to pay for complete 1 hour for keeping the server idle. So in this kind of use cases, what we can do, we can make use of the Lambda service. So in Lambda, there are no running servers. No, Lambda is referred as serverless computing platform. That means there are no servers that we have to deploy. There are no idle servers that we have to keep running as per the requirement. So but here we have to simply upload a function code. That means we want that whenever any event is triggered, for example, we have a submit button here. We want that whenever the user clicks on submit, then only this Lambda function should be triggered, and whatever script we have added here in Lambda, so whatever needs to be executed, Lambda is going to simply execute that script and let us know. And in Lambda, the billing is based on per 100 milliseconds. The billing here is based on per 100 milliseconds. That means if we have completed the entire function, let's say in 4.5 seconds, then we have to pay exactly for 4.5 seconds, nothing less, nothing more. If we have paid for, suppose, let's say if the entire process took 10.1 second to be completed. So we have to pay exactly for 10.1 seconds, nothing less, nothing more. as a part of simple Lambda service. And here, as a part of a hands-on, we are going to perform a small hands-on where we are going to make use of a simple S3 bucket, and then we are going to make something disappear in this particular bucket so we can see some differences between and after the job. And then we are going to trigger, and then we are going to simply create a Lambda script, and then we are going to link this Lambda script with the function, with the bucket. So if any event happens on these objects, then that event is going to be processed and handled by Lambda. Now, as a part of a hands-on as well, we are going to perform a simple task. We are going to perform a simple task. That means, let's say we have a S3 bucket. We have a S3 bucket, and we want whenever the end user, they upload, whenever any end user uploads any kind of data in the bucket, we want that this particular, so whenever there is any kind of object added here, so again that should be triggering an event. That should be triggering an event here, correct? And that event should be processed by Lambda service. And Lambda, we have to create a simple Lambda function. And we want, suppose that whenever any website user, suppose we are building a website, we have built a website, and we are allowing the website users to upload their data into the S3 bucket that we have created. So we want that if any of the website users, they upload any data into the S3 bucket that we have created, we want to receive a notification that now we want that this particular, as soon as they upload the website, so this event should be processed by Lambda service. And in Lambda, we have a function in which we have defined that we should be receiving an email notification whenever this entire object is going to be added. And whenever this object is going to be added, this is going to trigger this particular function that we have added in Lambda. And then we want this function to be executed. And suppose based in this function, we have defined that users should be receiving an email. So we can start sending the emails whenever the object is going to be added in the S3 bucket service. And this is what we are also going to look at as a part of the hands-on. So we can erase this up. So if we talk about the pricing depends upon every 100 milliseconds. So we have to pay, again, we have a pay as you go pricing. That means we have to pay only for the time period we have consumed the resources. That's it. We have AWS Lambda pricing. So we can refer to this link here to see how exactly Lambda is priced. So here we can navigate to the Lambda service. So the easiest way to navigate to any services under AWS is to use the search bar available on the top section. So once we have the access, we can navigate to the services, and in the services here we can search for a service by the name of Lambda. Now, before we see the hands-on, let's discuss what exactly we are going to do in our hands-on so that we have a complete clarity over that. So in a hands-on, let's say we have a S3 bucket. We have a simple S3 bucket. So we want if any object is going to be uploaded in this particular bucket, this object should simply trigger a function that we are going to create in the Lambda. So this object upload, so any object is going to be uploaded in S3. So that object upload should simply trigger an event that should trigger the Lambda function. And in this Lambda function, we are going to define a function that should send out a simple email to any of the email servers that we have defined. So that, and again, this entire processing for sending out the email whenever any object is going to be added under S3, we are going to use Lambda service for that as a part of the hands-on. All right, so let's see how we can execute this. So let's erase this up. So first of all, we are going to create a bucket back in our account so that we can make use of it. So let's do one thing. Let's go to our S3 service, and under S3, we can navigate to the bucket creation section. So first of all, we can create a bucket here. We can click on create bucket. Here we can find the name of the bucket. Suppose let's say we want to name the bucket as, suppose on today's day. So here we can define October 30th. We can define the region in which we want the bucket to be deployed. At the end, we have to make sure that we are deploying the bucket in a region closer to the end users. And how exactly it is structured, we are going to discuss this point in detail as we proceed towards our certification training. And then we can set all the other properties if we are looking to share the objects to the public by giving it a public read access. So we can unblock this. We can uncheck this option, blocking all the public access. And then we have, if you want to enable versioning, we want to add tags, or we want to encrypt data by using the symmetric and asymmetric keys, then we can use it. So we can click on create bucket for now. And this bucket by the name of October 30th is going to be created on in S3 servers. Now we want that whenever we want that if anyone opens up S3, they should be able to simple notification should be sent via S3. And now we are going to navigate to Lambda because now we have to create that function. So here we can use Lambda. Now under Lambda, we already have these two functions already available with us. So let's do one thing. Let's delete these two functions so that we can start from scratch. So here we can choose a function. We can click on delete. We can choose the other function, and now we can delete that function as well. All right. So now we are going to create a new blank function. So here we can click on create function. Now in Lambda, we have three options. Either we can create a function from scratch, we can create a function using a blueprint, or we can use a function by we can simply use the serverless app repository that has been submitted by the public to get started. So first of all, we can author from scratch. Now when we are defining the blueprint, we can get multiple application, we can say the function blueprint, which we can use as a base, and to get started. So let's say if we have, now here we can see here we have S3 get object built on Python. So currently we have the function already defined under Python that we can make use of. So let's say if you want the base to be Python, then we can make use of this blueprint. We can modify all the changes that we want, and then we can have it deployed. Or if you want to start from scratch, then here we can click on author from scratch. We can define the function name. Let's say here we define the function name as S3 for Lambda because our goal here is to get the notification, email notification when any object is going to be added into S3 bucket. So here we can define function name to be S3 Lambda. And here we can choose from multiple runtimes. So it all comes down to us what kind of environment we want to use when we are working on any particular application. For example, let's say we want to get notified or we want the entire Lambda to be this function to be built on Node.js, on Python, on Go, .NET, Java, Java 8, Python 2.7 or 3.8. So we can choose the entire runtime. So let's say if we want to create the function and now we want the function to be defined in suppose in Node.js. So here we can choose the Node.js runtime and that is going to be used as a part of the hands-on and so on. And we can change the runtime later on as per the requirement. So let's do one thing. Let's say here we choose Node.js as a part of our simple hands-on. So we can choose the Node.js environment. And now we can, if you want to define permissions, so here we can define permissions where we can add a role. So roles are basically used to give the access to one service to interact with the other services. As a part of the IAM discussion, we are going to discuss that. And here we can click on create function. So a function is going to be created, and if we scroll down, we can see here we have the section for function code. So we can upload the entire function code here. We can define whatever function we want to define here, and then this is going to be executed accordingly. All right, so here we are going to find the function. All right, so here we already have defined a predefined function with us for sending out the email notifications that we are going to perform using Lambda. So basically here we have a function defined in Node.js where we can define here we define the export handler. Now basically here we have regions. So when we are creating any Lambda function, we have to define a region in which this particular function is going to be executed. So currently we are in Mumbai and we can see we have for every region, we have different region codes. So if we are deploying a function in Mumbai, then the region code here also needs to be the same. So here we can choose AP South 1 as a function name as well. So here we can define AP South 1. AP underscore south 1. So here we can define AP south 1. And then we can define the two. Now here we are using simply the email handler where we can define the to address. So let's say we want to send the email to us. For example, here we have the email address. Now since we are going to see the email address, email being received in a browser, we can make use of same email as our own email address. Here we can define the text as in the body data. So here we can define lambda. So this is going to be the body. That means what should be the content in the email that is going to be received. So here we can define an email, or we can define an object has been uploaded to S3 bucket, because this is going to be triggered whenever the bucket is going to be, whenever the object is going to be added there. And then we can define the subject. So on the data here we can define, let's say, email from Lambda. Here we can define email from Lambda service. And then the source, and that means from which email this is going to be sent. Now basically we cannot enter any random email. This email has to be verified by the SES service as well, as in simple email service. So we can define the SES service, and then we can, once we are done, we can simply save this entire function as well. We can click on save as, or we already have defined the name, so let's simply save the function in here itself. And now we can click on deploy. Now once we are done, we can, if you want, we can test the function as well, where we can create our own test events, just like we do in Selenium. We have our own test events that we can configure, and then we can define the event name as well. So once we are done, so now we are going to come back to S3. So here we can switch to S3 service. Now we can come to the bucket, because we want that if any object is going to be added in this bucket, then we should be getting notified. So let's do one thing. Let's say we, now for setting the Lambda function, for integrating the Lambda function with this S3 bucket, we have to go to tools. That means what kind of event notification we want to create. So sometimes it may take a second for the event notification to be configured. So here we can define event name. Let's say we want to name the event as Lambda. All right, so here we can define the event type. We want the notification to be generated on the put action. It means whenever the objects are going to be added. So here we can define put, and then we can scroll down. We can choose the Lambda function, and then we have a Lambda function that we have created by the name of Lambda. So you can choose S3 Lambda, click on Save Changes. So now I can see this event is going to be created. So as you can see here, if we scroll down, we would be able to see the Lambda, the event notification has been defined. So now if we scroll up, we would be able to see the S3 bucket. Now let's say if we add any object to this particular bucket, for example, if we click on upload, and we can click on add files. Let's say here we can choose to add any file. For example, let's say here we want to add any file here. Suppose here we have simple image. It can be any image. And then we can define the class. We can define all the properties for the current object that we are going to add here. We can scroll down, click on upload. And as soon as this is currently uploaded, as you can see, this has been currently uploaded here. So after a while, we would be receiving an email into our inbox once the entire notification is going to be processed by Lambda. So we may have to wait for a couple of seconds, and then we would be able to see an email is going to be received by Lambda service. Thank you so much for joining, guys, and have a great day ahead. Take care. Bye-bye.